People talk all the time about how hard it is to be a single mom, but how hard it is to be a single father. It's rough, and nobody wants to talk about that. This is the stereotype of the dad in front of the TV, in his lounger, with a beer, not talking to his family, shuts down 3 hours after work. He's just sitting there for 3 hours, and the family's like, I didn't have a father growing up.
A lot of men have this expectation that fatherhood is supposed to come naturally. Wrong. You're not going to be taught that even if you had the best dad in history. You're going to still be one-on-one with your kid and your wife, and you're still going to have that sense of being lost because that's part of the experience.
How can you be a good father? How can you be the best father for your son? How can you be the best father for your daughter? These are hard questions that most fathers today are confronting and they don't have answers to. And that's why today on the I Wish You Knew podcast, we are handling fatherhood and these very hard conversations. I'm your host, Adam Lane Smith, and with me is another father, Andrey Korikov, and we will be guiding you through what it means to be a good father.
Adam, let's get right into this. Fatherhood is such an important subject now, but nobody really knows how to do that because we don't have role models anymore. At least most of us don't. We're confused as per what a father even is. Unfortunately, we live in a world where we even confuse what a mother is. And I thought that'd be evident, but apparently it's not. So let's take a step further and say, what really is a father figure? Let's define what a father figure actually is. What do you think?
Oh, we need to talk about this because our society, we've seen the effects of not having a father, right? The research shows, look at our society. Everybody in our society has a mother. There's not a problem of motherlessness in our society. Fathers are not here. Fathers are kept apart from their children, or they walk away from their children, or they never learned how to be a father.
I don't know, man. I've seen a lot of moms walk away from their kids too. And this is actually part of the problem because then a lot of moms walk away from their kids. They've been told many different things. They could be walking away to go to work. They can be walking away to go pursue their dreams. They can be running off some, schmuck that is like significantly younger than them and then just trying to live the dream and travel the world and, be a princess. And it happens time and time again. In fact, this has already started the MGTOW movement. This is a major driver of the red pill movement. And we've talked about this already, that women are actually very often walking away from their kids. And often the dad is left with a completely absent idea of how to be a dad. That could even be happening without a divorce. The mom could be gone for many, many different reasons. So what exactly is a father figure?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I don't disagree with you. I think that we have reached a place where fathers are mandatory. We need fathers again. For society to get fixed, that's what I was going to say. We have to have fathers. If we don't, I don't want to swear on here, but yeah, if we don't, we're effed. Fatherhood, having a present father in the home is one of the biggest indicators of mental health success, life success. Everything comes down to, is your father fully present? So I say that.
What is a father? Yeah. Is that the guy who's like showing up and, putting food on the table, which is a very common issue with avoidant, your avoidant men clients, right? Yeah. Avoidant fathers show up and they say, look, I am paying the bills. I am providing shelter. I am giving you, summer camps. Here's a damn pony, right? Here's another damn pony. And then that's it. They say I fulfilled. But no, afterwards the kids come out and they say, oh, my father was never present. They manifest and display the same issues as many fatherless families have where the father has left.
Yeah. Fatherhood is something that is irreplaceable. So we have to look at what's not replaceable. What could not be replaced with a social worker? A social worker test is what I look at with fatherhood, right? Could you be reasonably replaced with a social worker who fulfills exactly the same things that you do? Could a social worker issue a paycheck? Could a social worker drive them around? Could a social worker, right? The things that a social worker could not do is where fatherhood really begins, fully begins.
Where does this fall into place with all of these other people who are also involved in a kid's life? Because a kid's life is actually now full of strangers, right? And I can tell by my daughter, right? Especially, if you work, if you send them to school, there's teachers, there's nannies, there's daycare providers, there's, depending if you're religious or not religious.
But these are all professionals. These could easily be classified as social workers, right? A father cannot be replaced by a professional. So what is not replaceable by a professional? Well, let's look biologically. What role does a father serve? A father is a safety figure. Father is safety. Not just safety from a leopard who's going to come eat you in the darkness, but safety from a rival tribe, safety from starvation, safety from being sold off into slavery, safety from a number of things.
So you're actually listing a number of attributes here that are united by a very single common trait. Right, and the common trait, and this is, I think, where we can come into defining what fatherhood really is, and this is for all of the fathers who are listening. This is for every father who out there who wants to actually understand what it is to be a father. They have to understand this key concept. That is uncompromising loyalty, right? What is the term that we use for God? Unconditional. Mm-hmm. There we go. That is unconditional love. That is to say that if a bigger, better tribe shows up and they point at your daughter and they say, I'll give you 6 pieces of gold or 6 daughters for that one daughter, your response is to pick up an axe and put it in their head.
Correct.
That is the instinct, the animal instinct of how dare you even suggest that there is a value to my offspring. That is, I think, where fatherhood begins. And I think a lot of men are actually scared of that instinct.
Let's take it a step further. Fatherhood ultimately creates safety from fear. Not that having a father makes you not be afraid, but fatherhood creates safety from fear. Here's something fantastic that I heard from the famous speaker, Vin Zhang. He talked about when he went and told his parents, I am dropping out of college, which, as he tells the story, from an Eastern Asian man in an Eastern Asian family is like death. I am dropping out of college.
Shame.
And I'm going to become a magician. And he went home and told his parents. And he said he told them this, and they walked in the kitchen. He realized that's where the sharp knives were. And he was convinced they were going to come out and simply kill him and then raise his little brother instead in his place. And he said his father came out and looked at him and said, I don't like what you're going to do, but for as long as I am alive, I will be your safety net.
So what does that response trigger in you as a father? When you look at that and you hear that story, what does it make you feel for that man?
A safety net is not something that holds...
No, for that man, for that father's man. Sorry, for that man's father, what does that make you feel? What is the word that comes to mind?
Courage.
And do you respect that courage?
Absolutely. So
Respect is a thing that people do not talk about enough. And from all of your teaching, respect is an integral part of masculinity, of masculine mental health, of masculine obligation, right? So we intrinsically respect fathers who can go out and do that. And they will act courageously in a way that's detrimental to themselves to do what?
Well, think about this. Fathers are safety from fear. A father's role in your life is to cultivate courage.
Okay.
That's ultimately a father's role, is to cultivate your courage.
For what purpose?
So that you can go forth and grow, you can achieve, you can accomplish, you can have children, you can expand, and then you can cultivate their courage as well. Fathers are expanding continuously, and they are allowing everybody else to expand upon them. That is a father's role, is building that courage in their children. So in Vin Zhang's case, his father allowed him the luxury of courage to go chase that dream. And so he's become a phenomenal success, but because in that moment, his father gave him the luxury of having that adventure, the luxury of courage to chase that new objective. Fathers create the luxury of having courage to take risk.
What happens if that luxury is missing? What happens to a kid's brain?
Oh, their brain is destroyed. So your brain actually, parts of it don't form properly. Your brain can actually form very mushy. It can form your prefrontal cortex. It's disgusting. Oh. Your prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for understanding consequences, cause and effect. If your father isn't teaching you that properly, it actually won't form even through adulthood. You'll grow into adulthood with a malformed brain. You're also going to be constantly on the cortisol pathway, which is constant inflammation, not only in the brain, but in the body. It will destroy you long term, which is why the effects that we see in a fatherless society, and not fatherless because fathers are worthless, but fathers don't know how to be fathers, and they're kept away from their children largely. The brains are destroyed. Brains are destroyed. We live in a society that is contracting and is retreating into coping and escapism because people don't have the luxury of courage anymore.
Is there a way, if you have not had a present father in your home, if you did not grow up with that luxury of being able to go to your dad and saying, this is what I want to do, and he basically looks at you and says, I trust you and I'm proud of you enough to support you, right? So that I can go out and I can face my own father who may disagree with me, if that person is alive, and say, you know what, Dad, I have allowed my son or my daughter to do this, and I will stand by them even if you disagree with me, right? There's an interesting biblical line specifically that talks about having the courage to walk away from your parents in order to follow God, in order to follow the meaning that you're given, right? And in a way, that's also that, is your obligation to your offspring actually outweighs your relationship with your own father. So it seems like there's a progression going on. What happens if you do not have that?
If you don't step away and advance and grow?
What happens if you don't have the luxury of having a figure like that? So you grow up, your father was either absent or your father was, did not have the capability to respect you in this way and to teach you that courage. And you grew up with a mushy brain. What are you going to do? Are you screwed forever? Is it over?
I see. Well, the pathway is actually the same whether you have a good father or not. It's just much harder. Fathers are meant to initiate you into tracking with other people then who are going to help give you that courage as well. So man to man, right? Man to man. Our fathers were supposed to be there to give us the luxury of launching, of growing, of connecting, of building and expanding beyond the borders of what they had established. That was their role, okay? Then we are supposed to connect with people out in the world, you and I, other men, and then form those connections which create that next level of trust, alliance. This is why we have vasopressin bonding in the first place. Fathers should initiate us into masculine bonding and into courage, and then we grow that with other men. That is what is supposed to happen. Now, that is where the chain is getting broken. Fathers are not initiating their sons into that masculine growth and bonding. So then the sons go out, and we have generations that have never been lonelier and generations of men that have never been more separated. We had Dr. Robert Glover on not that long ago, you and I, and we talked about this. But that's where that breakdown is taking place. Fathers are not initiating it. Sons don't know how to do it. Men are not connecting. Society is falling apart as a result.
That's a fantastic point. That fathers are the entities that teach you how to create vasopressin bonds. Vasopressin bonds to other men so that you can grow and expand your network. But also vasopressin bonds to women, I assume, right? So that you can learn how to overcome challenges together without being fearful. What is the role of vasopressin in regulating fear?
Vasopressin and fear is enormous. So this comes from the work of Dr. Sue Carter, who wrote the paper, The Role of Oxytocin and Vasopressin Bonding in Fear. It was fantastic. But in that, link below, she talks quite a lot about vasopressin being present when your brain says, I have trusted allies who have resolved challenges with me. Your brain, when it hits a new challenge, recalls that you have a network of trusted allies to work with. It actually starts regulating that fear because now you have practical proof that you will not be left alone because you have people that are bonded properly to you. This is true of both men and women. Largely more for men because we have more receptors. But as society has grown worse, one cool factor about this is that as society gets worse, as stress gets higher, as attachment issues even become problems, oxytocin bonds will often shift. Oxytocin receptors in the brain will shift into vasopressin bonding receptors instead. So we are more primed for this. So the time has never been better for fathers to step forward and begin initiating right now so that the next generation can bond phenomenally and bring things back to where they are supposed to go.
The ability to build back tribes. I hear this all the time in the industry. We talk about this in the Veritas Creator Academy continuously. The ability to build tribes, right? The ability to go in and build a tribe, as we're building a tribe for you, Adam, and you come and talk about that in the academy as well. But the ability to build a tribe around a belief and overcoming an obstacle, right? In many different ways, the ability of a father to teach you how to overcome a challenge in a way that builds you and increases your courage, and in a way that allows you to build self-respect, is the foundation of self-improvement, right? So as a man, you're constantly challenged to improve yourself, to provide for yourself, to provide for your family, to provide for your friends, to take your part in the world, and to play your part in the master plan that, you know, the world has in store for you. That is really founded in that ability to dare to attempt things, right? To dare to step forward into discomfort and the trust that is going to lead you to a place where you're going to win at something. It's the ability to win.
Well, and that's even tracked into dating today. Like, men are terrified. Men are terrified. Now, they're not cowards, but men are afraid of stepping forward and being exposed. A lot of men come to me and they say, Adam, I have this woman that I really think is fantastic, but I'm afraid to have this conversation with her. I'm trying to feel out where she's at. And I ask, how long have you been trying to feel it out? Well, 2 years. Well, haven't you just had a conversation with her? Well, no, I mean, I'm not sure what she's going to say, and I need to make sure of that before I have the conversation. She's going to leave, right? Other men, hey, you know what? I need to have this conversation with my dad. I need to have a conversation with my friend. I need to figure out what I'm going to do. But they're afraid because they don't have those bonds. They don't have the trust. They don't have the evidence that people will treat them fairly. A tribe. What is a tribe? It is not a collection of people who happen to live in the same geographic location. It's not neighbors. A tribe is people fully united behind belief, behind a cause, behind mutual survival, but then they are properly bonded, where they have relationships with each other, where goals are solved together, where threats are faced together, not alone in isolation and you wait for them to get to you.
But unconditionally so, right? So a
Sure,
tribe
everything
does
is
not sit
conditional.
there and say, I will only stand by you in battle for 23 minutes.
Sure.
Because that's, you know, the aggregate sum of the value you have given me. On the 24th minute, sorry, bro, you're on your own.
Correct.
Adios, you know,
Correct.
I'm out of here. So it's this ability to create this bond which will hold you no matter what happens. So, of course, unconditional love is only possible with God entirely, right? He's the only entity in the world
Correct. I was just
that
gonna
will
tell you.
allow you to, you know, he will put up with your nonsense forever.
Correct.
If you're willing to play that game.
And I was just going to challenge you on that, because people today say, like, conditional love is like it's a dirty thing. It's not. You should have conditions on having somebody in your
You
tribe.
should have conditions on unconditional love, saying, look, under these conditions, I can be my best self, and my
Sure.
best self wants to love you unconditionally.
Sure.
If you have, you know, a girlfriend or you're married, you cannot cheat.
Correct.
You know, you cannot be malicious.
Correct.
You cannot steal.
Correct.
Right? You cannot intend to hurt me.
We will
right?
not physically assault each other
We will
or
not-
children. Yes,
Exactly.
exactly. There are rules.
Right.
And that doesn't necessarily mean you stop loving, but you stop providing access to the same comforts, luxury, protection, all of that. Yes, every relationship needs to have those boundaries on them. That's not a dirty idea.
So let's actually take a step back here and say, what exactly is a father figure, right? So it is a father figure, a father.
Why are we having this conversation? For the people at home, why are we even having this conversation?
Because I don't know what a father is. Because most people actually don't even know how to be a father, what a father is. They have no target. So let's paint
Why?
a target. Why they have no target?
Yeah, why do they have no target?
Well, because so far, fatherhood got linked by most media to a provider stereotype.
Mm-hmm.
And then that provider stereotype then consequently got erased by liberal media.
Usurped.
And it was considered to be patriarchal and oppressive and evil, right? So first you put it in a box, and then you said everything in the box is bad. And this is now what fatherhood is. So a lot of the reason that people are afraid is because when they try to act in a way that is positive, in a way that is actually aligned with the masculine and the fatherhood values, they become a target. You know, people yell at them. People say, how could you set the rules? You know, I was going to say, what is a father? What is a father? It is an entity that protects, that sets the rules, that follows through in promises, and then stands by you no matter what happens, right? Does not give up on you, right? It is a thing that helps you learn how to be courageous. All of those things, if I was to sit down and talk with a very progressive individual, I'll call it that, I would get attacked for having these opinions, right? Because they would all say, how dare you tell me what I'm supposed to think, aka teach me? How dare you tell me what I'm supposed to do, aka provide for you? How dare you come in and patronize me? Like, what the hell? And then you guys wonder what happened to fatherhood. It's like you've erased all of it.
And erasing it is exactly the problem. I think that there's a massive gap at the same time. Plenty of the guys who come to me in coaching, they are fathers, and they crave, despite all of that, despite all the crap they're going to get, they crave to be a great father for their children, the way that they never had a father.
And what is a great father?
What is a great father? Good question. I've got 5 kids. I'm still figuring that out myself a little bit, but I can give you the parameters.
Like you. I got to say, I've seen you with your kids, and they do like you a lot, Adam. That's quite admirable. I've visited you years ago, and one of the things that really stood out to me was the comfort in your home. Like, I walked in, and it's like you open the door, and it feels like there's like sunlight, and you're just like, oh. And you probably remember me because I was actually just finishing my divorce at the time. I was figuring out how to be an independent father. I had a 4-year-old on my hands. Like, it was just a complete nightmare, disaster. And then I walked in, and I think for about 2 days out of the 3 that I stayed, I was like in silence. I was just trying to absorb that thing that was there. It was like an essence in the air. And I reflected that moment for a long time. What I really remember from that is it was a feeling of calm and protection. Like, it is a safety thing. So whatever you did, I think, to me, was the first thing that really resonated. It was that desire for safety.
Mm-hmm. I will say this, and my wife reminds me of this every single time when I mention how loud our kids are. She always says, Adam, she says, all the research proves that the healthiest and safest kids are the loudest because they have the luxury to be loud, they're not terrified, and they explore who they really are. So I think of that every time my daughters are screaming at 4:30 in the morning, yelling about how they're a puppy dog today or whatever they're being, and they wake me up that way. I remember that. But that's a father's role, is to provide the luxury for his children to explore their world without fear. That's a high level, but that's a father's job. Provide the luxury for your children to explore their world without fear. Yeah, yes. Let's begin at the very bottom of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Food, shelter, right, for the day. Okay, you're not going to freeze to death. A tiger is not going to eat you. You will have a meal, right? Level 2, safety and security. Again, like, okay, we are long-term safe. Providing money, right? Health. Not violence in the home, right? Safety. This is where most fathers stop. Most fathers provide the first 2 levels, okay? But the 3rd level is where humanity begins to thrive. This steps forward. This is the growth process. When we grow, when we hit level 3, we begin to grow and expand.
What's level 3?
Love and belonging. Tribe. Friendship. The idea that other people will be loyal to you, even if it's conditional on your good behavior. The idea that you belong. A sense of shared identity that is positive, not negative, right? Like I'm shoved into this box. Love and belonging is level 3, meaning that you are not in a conditional system where you are being tracked and measured, but you belong and you'll be given the benefit of the doubt. It won't be one mistake and you're out. It won't be 23 minutes and then you're left alone. You know, it's 23 minutes plus some variables based on how things have gone, plus the love factor, the biochemistry. That's the level 3 that most fathers don't know how to begin initiating with their children, to help their children feel loved and like they belong.
A major portion of that is very much, and I'm going to call it out for what it is, a disassociative symptom based on stress. Mm-hmm. You know, we have a game plan for getting through stages 1 and 2. And the 3rd stage, because this is where we have to start confronting our own experiences, past experiences, is so terrifying. And I've ventured in this territory many, many times, that when you actually come in, and you want to try to forge a connection, you want to try to engage in play, you want to try to engage in love, it creates a the feeling that this is happening with somebody else, like you're simply observing yourself from a distance because you're so stressed about having the absence of experience with that on your own end. Now, it doesn't have to be from childhood. I'm not even sitting there going like, oh, my dad never played with me. That's not true, because he did. And there's a lot of values that he instilled in me. So I definitely want to make sure that, I'm fair to that, and to say, no, I actually had a good father figure in many ways. But a lot of people, A, did not. So obviously they're missing that. And B, my actual connection with my father figure was severed in my teenage years for many different circumstances. Many cases, I was just an idiot, to be honest, as teenagers are. So, and there was also just many different factors with cultural, associations and connections and just circumstance and many, many different things. But that break from the ability to learn how to love as an adult man, what is that supposed to look like? This is where many men come in. And I would love to hear from men in the comments, how many of you actually experience the feeling like this is happening with somebody else, and there is a glass wall about this thick, made out of bulletproof glass, and it's sunshine and rainbows and puppies, and your children frolicking in these beautiful, fields, and you're on the other side in the cold, in the dark, looking in. What is that?
Right. It's that feeling of the man coming home from war, and you're covering your armor and blood and guts, and you're exhausted, and you got an arrow in your heart, in your shoulder, and you step in at the front door, and there's all your family, and they're all happy, and they're warm, and they're fed, and then you have to try to enter that again. I used to work with so many veterans who would come home and say, the one theater they don't train you for is the home front. They don't train you how to come home. They don't train you how to initiate and bond like that. I would love to hear from the guys in the comments. Do any of you know how to bond with your children on purpose? Let me know yes or no. But that's something that most fathers are missing, is how to bond on purpose, because they never had that themselves. I've had that. I've had this experience, and just like you're describing, your kids are all playing, you get down on the floor, you lay there, and they're all jumping on top of you, and then your brain won't stop buzzing.
And you're gone.
And you're gone.
And you're gone. That's the thing. You're not there. That's the sad part. And you want to be, but you can't.
No, your brain is buzzing. And you can't stop thinking about that guy you got to talk to. You can't stop thinking about that task. What if this happens? Oh, man, if this happens, how's it going to impact my kids? They don't even know right now.
I'll challenge you that even more. You can be disciplined, and you can make yourself stop thinking about it.
Sure.
You can interrupt that thought pattern.
Sure.
The challenge is that what do you fill that gap with?
Yes.
Right?
Because,
what do you put there?
Yeah, because if you don't, you could just discipline yourself, and then you sit there blank.
Yeah.
And then you roll right back into it. Then you discipline yourself, and then you're blank. Then you roll back into it. Most guys don't have that next state. So here's the next state. The next state is to purposely lean into, and this is gonna be woo-woo stuff, but bear with me. Purposely lean into a serotonin event. Okay. Most guys are trying to lean into a dopamine event. They're trying to lean into, this has to feel really fun in the short term. They're trying to give themselves, excuse me. They're trying to give themselves a sugar rush. They're laying there and they say, okay, feelings off, stress off, cortisol down. Now I have to act like I'm having a sugar rush with my family. And you can't go there. You can't just make yourself have dopamine. That's not really how it works. What you can do is pause and initiate a serotonin release. Very crucial that you know how to do this.
You poke yourself in the eyeball?
Yes. No. So serotonin is released in a number of ways. What's fascinating is you can do it alone inside your brain. You can do this completely alone. Meditation can do this. Good memories can do this. Taking a deep breath and heavily oxygenating your lungs and your bloodstream can do this. Centering yourself in the moment where you are. Closing your eyes. Here's what I do. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath. Hold it. Let it out slowly. Listen to your children's voices. Ground yourself with your physical senses and be present in the moment, and ask yourself, what do I want to give to my children? What do I want to give to my children in this moment? That centers me, and it releases some traces of serotonin where you begin to feel some contentment. Then as that positivity begins to build, you lean forward into that even more. Your children sense that. They sense that difference. Your pheromones are even different. They smell you sometimes a little bit differently. And then they lean in, and then you start engaging with them. Then they love
lick
it.
you. It's really weird.
Yeah,
why
then they
kids,
lick,
I don't understand why.
They jump on you. My sons jump on me, and they get me around the neck, and then my daughters are trying to kiss me.
It's probably pheromones.
Yeah, I'm being strangled and kissed at the same time. It's weird. But they sense the change. They actually can feel that change. And that's what they're looking for. And then they get wild and crazy, but now you're leaning into it. It really is creating that initial burst of serotonin so that you can make the difference.
We don't know as men what serotonin really feels like, because it's not one of those things that you really got trained on because of many, many reasons. And it's not really something that comes innately. In fact, there's a very interesting trigger I have seen and experienced many times myself when I come in, especially after a workday, and I have to switch from the dopamine rush and then, dopamine cortisol cycle.
It's horrible.
But I have to now switch into the serotonin system, and the first 20 seconds that you get a hug from your kid and you try to let it go, you get so tired. I'm just like, nap time.
Yep.
And I feel horrible because I'm like, why? Why is it that I had all this energy, for example, me and Kimmy, like our producer, we're hammering things out, getting the podcast ready, we're getting channels launched, everything feels great, working with you on your coursework, we're working with other clients. And then I get home and I get a hug and I'm done for the day.
Yep.
And I feel like absolute crap because that's what it makes me feel like a bad person, a bad person who does not even have the energy to play with your kids. What the hell's up with that?
And that's where most guys run for dopamine again. They're like, oh, I feel like crap. Then they run to the fridge, they grab caffeine or sugar or donut, or then they push their family away from them and retreat into a room just to be silent in the darkness and feel nothing. Or they retreat to TV, pornography, video games, anything.
TV is so easy, right? You show up with your dad and you're like, oh, I'm tired from work. Let's flip on this. Next thing you know, your evening's gone.
Correct. Yeah, or this is the stereotype of the dad in front of the TV, in his lounger, with a beer, not talking to his family, shuts down 3 hours after work. He's just sitting there for 3 hours, and the family's like, I didn't have a father growing up. That's why men retreated into that. We do need to detox. So I had a rule when I worked at my last clinic. I had a rule. Dad comes home, no drama until dad has peed, put down his bag, and changed his outfit. Now, what I would do in the bathroom, refresh, breathe, have that serotonin event, splash water on my face, and then have that moment and be centered. Really, I heard a great phrase recently of be present, be where your feet are. Be where your feet are. Be present in your moment instead of in the future where your feet are going to be. Feel that presence. Allow yourself even to feel crappy for a moment, right? Even to feel like crap for a few minutes. But then lean into some good memories or lean into some goals. Lean into what you want to create with your children. Have a good memory that you can pull up that releases serotonin. Say a prayer. I have prayers that I lean into for me. The prayers really initiate the serotonin event for me, right? Music can do some of this. Breath work, muscle stretching. A lot of things can release serotonin. Men need to learn to master their brain chemistry to be a good father.
There we go. So we have this expectation, and a lot of men have this expectation that fatherhood is supposed to come naturally. Wrong. It does not come naturally. You're not going to be taught that even if you had the best dad in history. You're going to still be one-on-one with your kid and your wife, your girl, whatever, right? And you're still going to have that sense of being lost because that's part of the experience. So as a father, a key thing which you're supposed to really do is you're supposed to create this discipline and a desire. You're supposed to, and I use this word cautiously, but it's applicable here. You're supposed to lead, but you're not supposed to lead your family. I actually hate that term. I really do, because it's been overused by a lot of creators, let's just put them that way, who use this for abuse. They lead people towards abuse. They're not leaders, they're tyrants, right? I have a lot of negative emotion towards them. I despise them. So if you want to lead, you have to lead yourself. You have to have discipline. You have to have an aim. You have to have a desire. You have to lead yourself more than you lead anybody else in life. And this is where it all starts, right? If you want to be a father figure, if you want to be a good father, where are you leading yourself to? What is your scouting mission where you put your intent forward and then follow that intent by leading yourself and then eventually guiding your family towards that.
Yeah, well, I mean, it goes back to what's the purpose of a king? The purpose of a king is two things: to serve his people and to preserve the kingdom for the next king. Those are really the two purposes of a king. So when you talk about leadership, that's the role of leadership, is to take care, serve your family, and preserve things for the next generation of people who are going to lead, and the next ones and the next ones. That's the luxury of courage. That's the luxury of expansion. That is your role. So most fathers are not running away from this, that I've talked to, at least the ones who ask questions and who would listen to a podcast about what is fatherhood in 2024. Fathers are not running away from it, but they don't know how to do it. It's starting to feel helpless. Disciplining the self to master your brain chemistry is step number one, because you can do nothing effective in fatherhood without that. All you will be is a paycheck.
That is not step number one.
What do you think is step number one?
I think the step number one is to do a full assessment of yourself and see what is preventing you from taking step number one. I'll give you an example. If you are addicted to pornography, I have a fantastic creator named Sathya Sam that we work with, and he specifically targets this, and this is something that we're working on with him, and it is about handling the first step. You cannot be anything you want to be if you're addicted to pornography, if you're addicted to drugs, if you're addicted to anything where your mind is not your own and you cannot control yourself. You can be disciplined all you want.
Oh, I agree.
Right? And you can be the best. This is often. You can be the best doctor. You can be the best athlete. But if you're snorting coke, like if you're running around and you cannot stop looking at porn, if you cannot, stop yourself from being a serial cheater, you're not going to be anything, because the problem there is you do not respect yourself.
I don't think we disagree. I think step 0, assess, absolutely. But step 1, mastery of all of that would mean taking control of those things and removing addictions. You're not a master of yourself if something controls you. If you're compelled, your brain chemistry is off. Anybody experiencing compulsions is not master of self. Your brain chemistry is screwed. If you're compelled to act in ways, especially that are detrimental to your role as a father, you are not master of yourself.
So here is a very simple and very effective way to understand if there are compulsions. And I've used this myself. I use this with many people that I also coach. And it goes like this. Look yourself in the eye, go to a mirror, look yourself in the eye and say, do I respect myself? Scan that, think about that, Adam. Ask yourself that. Do you respect yourself? And tell me what you think.
Yeah. I start thinking about my principles, my honor code that I follow. I start assessing how often I follow it and when was the last time I broke it and what did I do to atone for it. I start assessing my long-term goals, especially around my family, around the people that I care about, and my business, and the promises I've made to people that I've helped, and how I've kept those, and if I have not kept them appropriately, how I've tracked them. So yeah, those are the immediate things I start thinking about.
There you go. And there comes out your structure, right? There comes out the work you've put into this, right? I have had moments where I've looked in the mirror and I asked myself that question, do I respect myself? And said no.
Oh, yeah. And
that was my mode of action.
Oh, yeah.
Right off the bat, this is where you have to spring in and you have to do things because you know where the problem lies. The conversation around respect is the pivotal conversation around the sources of fatherhood. You cannot be a father if you do not respect yourself, because you will not respect your kids, you will not respect your wife, you will not respect anything. In fact, your entire mode of living will turn towards destruction, right? Because you'll be trying to find worth somewhere.
Well, and this is the key difference right here, is leaders need to continuously ask themselves that question and continuously guide, because you are only leading through example. You're not pushing people into serving you. You are pulling them from the front. Drivers, and those are the people, I would argue, the people that you're talking about who use the word leader, they are drivers. They are driving people with fear, and they're compelling people. They're not leading people. Leaders are at the front. Drivers are at the back.
It's very difficult to make that mistake. It is very difficult to make that mistake when there are little tiny humans who just love you to death.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And this is a mistake that also a lot of men make in the fatherhood figure. They show up and they let themselves forget about their own self-respect because they're just so loved. And then day by day, and it doesn't take a lot of days, they start turning into tyrannical figures.
Yeah.
Like they start turning into things which demand respect rather than earn respect. And that is the beginning of an exceptionally dangerous slide. And I have known a lot of men who end up too far down that slide and have a horrible time climbing back up because they don't have the resources to face what they've done. Mm-hmm. They don't have the framework, which is the forgiveness framework, to deal with it.
And we all screw up. I mean, I'm a father. I got 5 kids. My oldest is 7 and a half, almost 8. And I have screwed up at times with him.
Well, give me a story. Give me a story that maybe you haven't ever really, talked about before.
Sure.
But what is maybe a time that you screwed up as a dad, like really screwed up, and then it took you effort to climb out, but it came to a positive outcome?
Yeah, I can think earlier on in doing work and building my business and things. I remember stress really just built and built and built, and it wasn't something I had done before. Right, I ran in clinics, but they ran the business. I did various jobs, but everybody else had the weight on their shoulders. When it was my business, stress really started eating at me, and that was something I hadn't explored before. And I remember taking that into my home when my son was much younger, and we had built a deep, trusting, loving relationship.
So your son was 5 when we started working together, right?
Yes, he was 5. And I remember he came to me and he was jumping on me, trying to play with me, trying to initiate, poking me in the eye. And I was thinking so hard about this thing I was trying to build, this project, and I couldn't get it out of my head. And he was playing and poking and playing. And I remember I snapped at him like, "Hey, I just need these minutes. Can't you give this to me?" Like typical like victim mentality, right? I'm stressed out. Oh man, can't you just... And I remember the look on his face when he was so confused, like, because we'd done this a million times. And I remember thinking, oh man. So I said, "Buddy, give me 5 minutes. Can you go sit in your room for 5 minutes? I'm gonna do this. I will be right in." He just, "Okay." He scurried off, and I went, "Oh shoot." So put everything aside. Of course, now it's counterproductive because I've messed up. Now I've screwed myself over. Put everything aside. Go to the bathroom. Breathe, muscles, relax, get my brain down, cool. What do I want to do for my son going forward? What do I want this to be? Who do I want to be for him? What does he need from me? 20 years from now, what do I want this next conversation to be, to resonate with? What do I want to do 20 years from now that I have only this moment to do? I went in, sat down and said, "Buddy, I'm really sorry. That was not your fault. That was me. I let everything build up. I let my stress get too high, and you were just trying to play with me. I understand what you were trying to do. That was completely me. In the future, I will give you a signal that things are very tense at that moment. I'll need you to step back. But again, this was me, and I will not do this again. Here's what I'm going to do to manage my stress." And, he was 5. He didn't fully encapsulate every piece.
Yeah.
But the message he got was, Dad is not perfect, okay, but Dad will take ownership. Dad will self-correct. Dad will protect me from himself, even. Dad will protect me from the things that hurt him and scare him, and Dad will always come back.
I like that, because the core here is, if you're teaching your children to live without fear, and we are not made perfect, we are actually the source of the majority of their fear, because we run that. Right, we run that. And there is such huge value to the ability to stop making mistakes. I had an interesting experience with Ellie when she was 4. And same story, stress was building up, and we were moving the business down to the States and setting things up. And it was just in a very, very dramatic part of my life. And I picked her up from daycare. She was in junior kindergarten at the time. And I picked her up and I brought her home, and she wanted to play, and she had a great day. And I looked at her and I just went blank. I crashed so hard. And I started trying to talk to her, and the first thing she said just irritated me. And I was like, "That's it." And then I said, "You know what, Ellie, I love you. I'm going to lie on the floor for 10 minutes. I'm not going to say anything. And you're just going to have to wait. That's it." And she goes, "Well, what can I do?" I go, "Whatever you want." Obviously, don't hurt yourself, don't light the house on fire, but you're going to have to figure this out for the next 10 minutes. And I literally lay on the floor, and it's just like, that's it. And she comes up to me and she's confused. She's scared and confused. And she goes, I don't understand what's going on. She goes, can I sit next to you? I go, yes. And she sits next to me. And she goes, can I sit on you? I go, yes. She sits on my chest. And you could see she's actually sorting this through because she's sensing the tension going away. Kids will actually help you guide them through this. And next thing she goes, is it over yet? I go, no. The timer is right there. When it runs out and rings, that's when I'm going to start talking. She goes, well, I'm hungry. I go, oh, well. She goes, there's sausages in the fridge. Can I go eat them? I go, sure. And she goes and gets the sausages and she's standing with a plate. And she goes, can I eat them on you? I just go, whatever. Yes. And for the next 6 minutes, my 4-year-old sat on my chest. There was like a plate of sausages on my face, which she found hilarious. And she just ate her sausages on top of me. She was present with me. We didn't talk. I think she was like humming to herself. And the sense of trust was rebuilt because there was this sense of, we have stopped something bad from happening by taking ownership, and I'm showing her how to self-regulate. That was comforting to me. To me, it was a day of failure, right? It was like I could not provide for my 4-year-old for the whole 10 minutes. Like, that's it. Life's over. For her, it was a great bonding experience.
And this is where most fathers today are failing, and not by being bad fathers. Most fathers today are failing because they are afraid they have to be perfect fathers, and that stops them from engaging.
But that is a point of prideful arrogance, right? If you think that you're going to be perfect and your expectation for yourself is that you're going to be perfect and you use that as an excuse, so when you're perfect that you can sit there and you grovel in your own misery and self-pity, it's like, nah.
Part of it's my fault.
What's your fault?
Part of it's my fault.
Well, congratulations.
What'd
you do?
Me and my field. Psychology, therapy. Well, so we have built into people that if you don't get it perfect, everything you do wrong chips away at your child's well-being. Every bad day ruins your child. Every bad day is $5,000 in therapy when they're 25 years old. Every bad moment, or every sausage on your face moment is your daughter going to therapy complaining about how dad laid on the floor. And it's just not true. It's just not true. It is, and that's why I work so hard to tell people, look, you don't have to be a perfect parent. You have to build a self-correcting system. Exactly like that. Dad, I'm a little scared, but you're still here, and we're going to get through this. And then afterward, they have learned we can get through stress as a family. That's an important lesson because newsflash, your children will be stressed out someday. She's going to be grown up. She's going to be 20 years old, and she's going to lay on a floor, and she's going to say, I am so stressed out right now. And she's going to say, I have a memory of when dad was so stressed out, he laid on the floor. What did he do? Well, how did he feel better? Oh, wait, I remember. And then she's going to go to the fridge. She's going to get a plate of sausages, and she'll lay on the floor with plate of sausages on her face for 10 minutes.
And when I walk in on that, I'm really going to know what's going on.
Correct.
It's like fantastic.
But you know what? She's going to laugh. She's going to remember that moment with you. She's going to remember that you got through it. She might call you. If she's away somewhere, she might video call you. She might reach out to her boyfriend who's there. She might reach out to her best friend. She'll reach out to somebody and say, I remember dad got through this. We got through it together, so I can get through it too. It is not your job as a father to protect your children from fear. It is to give them the luxury of courage.
But it is also your job to protect them from fearing you, right? So
fearing you, yes.
That's a very important part as well of fatherhood, right? And this is where also many fathers run into issues. There is a huge problem right now. Yes, a lot of it is psychologists who say you cannot ever stress your children out in any way. And if you even dare to display a sign of irritation at them, you're going to traumatize them for life. Much less the spanking conversation, but even if you dare to look down upon them, then they will be traumatized for life. There's also a much different perspective. There's to say you must instill discipline. You must control behaviors. You must set up rigid rules. You must create boundaries that are immovable. And they try that, and they hurt their kids by saying that the rules are more important than you.
Authoritarian parents versus permissive parents is what you're talking about.
Yes.
The two extremes. Yeah.
So you actually, as a parent, not only must find a balance between them, but also have that as a shifting balance, because kids have this thing where they go through growth spurts. They learn new things. They will bring home bad habits. They will test you endlessly, especially at your worst. Kids don't touch you when you're at the best because they feel so great. But when you're sick, when you're stressed out, when there's something going on, they will find those buttons. It'll be bedtime. The majority of my arguments with my daughter happen at bedtime. At the end of the day, it was like, honey, I just need you to brush your teeth and go horizontal for me so I can go and tackle A, B, C, D, like clean the kitchen, all this other stuff. But that's when they choose to fight you. That's when they choose to push on you. Why is that? What is their damn problem?
Oh, man. Well, they get so tired they don't want to miss out. They get so tired they don't want to do it. Nobody likes being told to go to bed. You don't like, well, I mean, maybe.
Oh, I'd love to. If somebody looks at me and goes, Andrey, you look really tired. Go to bed. I'm just going to say, oh, thank you.
Yeah, that's actually true. That's a bad example. Most adults would love nap times.
Yes.
but I mean, it's something they don't control. It's something that they're tired and their brain chemistry's off, but they're also just testing you. How much do you love me? How much do you love me?
See, this is the thing that gets you, right? Is how much do you love you? We have to protect them from actually allowing them to test the boundaries of love. Boundaries are exceptionally important. Everybody talks about boundaries. But let's first of all say boundaries are meant to be flexible. They're meant to be contextual, right? And boundaries are there for the furtherment of the connection that you guys have, that eventually boundaries have to come down, right?
Well, and what most parents get wrong is that they try to have the conversation their child is demanding they have. When it's bedtime for me and my kids, we don't have the conversation about, well, I don't want to, well, why should I, right? We shift into, why is this good for you, and why is me putting you into bed the best thing I could do for you as a child, and how is you sleeping one of the best things you could do for our day tomorrow? That's a better conversation.
So let's role play this for a second. Adam, I'm your 7-year-old son. I'm not going to bed.
Chainsaw beatings. No, and my son does this all the time, right? And he gets up about 6 or 7 times, and we get progressively.
Adam, I'm not going to bed. I'm your son right now. I'm not going to bed. Dad,
how many times have you got up already to try to talk to me and share one more thought?
3 times. 3 times, Dad.
Yeah, that's about right. That's all. You're only halfway there. So
you can't make me. I don't wanna. I'm hungry.
Oh,
Dad.
He doesn't.
I'm
do that.
hungry.
We definitely don't have that kind of conversation.
Really? No. Oh, I get the I'm hungry conversation always.
No. My kids, when it's I have one more thing to share with you.
Oh,
because their brains are just buzzing.
For me, it's always I'm hungry. It's like, you had 2 dinners.
My wife loads them up on food before they really go to bed. It's dinner, huge, like substantial dinner, and then you move them through the process.
I gotcha.
So no, I have 5 kids, so bedtime is a fiasco. Yours is hunger. I'm assuming she's going to bed fully.
She eats literally like the amount of.
I've seen the way she eats. It's like more than a grown man, in a good way, and she's healthy. It's great. What do you think she's doing there when she says, "Dad, I'm hungry"? What do you think she's actually saying?
Oh, this is the difficult part, right?
So here's context. John Delaney, great guy. I love talking to John. He's going to be on our show here probably another couple episodes. John has a great statement. Behavior is a language.
Yes.
Okay. So what is her behavior saying?
I want to spend more time with you, because dinner is the time that we spend together. I let her go through conversations that she wants to go through. Yeah. We talk, about a lot of religious subjects. Actually, it's something that she loves. We talk to her stuffed animals. We bring her stuffed animal friends, and we talk to them about why they need to be good, and you have all these conversations. And that is probably the best bonding time that we have. When we say, I'm hungry, I don't think she's hungry for food. She's probably hungry for the conversation.
And my kids are the same, right? They keep getting up. They don't keep getting up because they're hungry, because they got to go potty. It's, I want to spend more time with you.
Right.
That's exactly it. So how do we as fathers, you go first, and then I'll tell you how I do it. How do you as a father reassure her that this is not the only time or even the best time for her to spend with you? Because that's the bedtime test. How do we reassure our child this is not the only time we'll have, but it's also not even the best time?
Usually I set it into a little bit of a play thing, right? Yep. So I will convert it into a little bit of okay, well, hey, let's try to get ready in 5 minutes, or let's have an extra little bit of connection time in bed. Let's, do a story together. Let's, do this together. So I kind of try to replace it. but I have not yet figured out a way to really help her close that, have that aha moment.
Okay.
I'm just not there
So
yet.
after 5 kids, here's how I've worked it out. And this is the method
I'll
that
take
works.
notes.
Yeah, this is the method that works for me. I talk with them and I tell them, okay, you want a little more time with me? Totally understood. We will make a deal. If I give you that additional time, you will then go to bed. But here's the kicker. If you don't keep your word, it will damage the trust between us. So the time that we're going to have tomorrow is going to be less good than it could be. So you will get this amount of time. And it's not that I'm not going to love them. When I say that, people in the comments freak out because they say you're telling your kids that if they don't do what you want, you won't love them. No. But look, we're going to build this. It's going to be a great experience tonight. But you will go to bed and you will keep your word to me. Otherwise, the trust will be broken. And they have pushed me many times. And I go in and I say, you know what? We kept our deal. We literally shake hands every time. You made it. We made a deal.
This is dangerous, Adam.
I know. But here's how it works. We made a deal. I need you to be honest with me. And I need to make sure that I can trust you. And we've built this. We've cultivated this. My kids know that the worst thing they can be is a liar. The worst thing. We've cultivated that through the years. Anything but a liar. Anything else. That is the one thing in our home you do not do. So as we've cultivated that, once we make a deal, we make a deal. And my kids go to bed at that point.
So as a heads up, the next time, Kimmy, take note of this. The next time that we're going to be implementing a new engagement strategy or something at Veritas with your brand, I'm going to use exactly the same lines. Adam, if this doesn't happen, this is going to damage the trust between us. I can see Kimmy laughing from here. So why does it work?
Because we have cultivated a relationship based entirely on trust. And we know that that is the currency that exists between us. We know that that is the mechanism of safety. They know that as long as they are honest with me, everything will work. Everything will be okay. And that I will be their safety net forever. They also know, not that I will stop loving them if they lie, but that the relationship itself will start to diminish. Their access, not to my love, but to the resources I can give them, to the trust between us, even the conversations that we can have. Everything will be diminished because there will be that lack of trust. Again, it's not that they won't be loved or will be unsafe or will be disciplined more, but we have cultivated so much love between us that they don't want that to be wounded. As we cultivate that and build that, it becomes a relationship that we grow together as a family. And that is why, yeah, they can act up, and then once they make a deal, they hesitate. They think before we make deals. My kids don't just grab your hand and pump it and say, okay, yeah, we got a deal. They really think about it. But once they give their word, they follow through.
That's pretty awesome. So here's yet another facet, and fatherhood is a multifaceted thing. It's definitely a process of something that you have to establish. You have to establish a set of traditions. You have to establish a set of values in which you're going to be based on, and you have to stick to them, and you have to implement them. You have to work on this continually. Another major issue that fathers are having, and this is something that we very briefly touched in the beginning, is unfortunately with the absent feminine component. Like I said, a lot of mothers are, even if they're physically in the home, they're absent. Not to say that, women are causing, walking away from their kids as a rule, but it is happening very frequently, right? Even if it's unintentional, even if you're going to work, even if you're taking in a more masculine role, even if there are some relationship issues. Unfortunately, when that happens, a father has to take over both sides. I have had to take over both sides in my own home. And it has become impossible for me to actually execute on those functions as a father the way you described. I have no capacity, right? If you have to go do dishes and do laundry and then also watch how hungry they are and also work on their psychological needs and also go do all this type of parenting, there really is no way to get it done right. And for a lot of fathers who are in the same circumstance, love to see a show of hands below. Are you a divorced father? Are you a single father? Are you a father with an absent partner? Are you a father with a partner who has, issues in the home? What that experience is like for you? How much it cuts off for your ability to provide those upper echelons of the Maslow's hierarchy?
People talk all the time about how hard it is to be a single mom. But how hard it is to be a single father.
Well, I don't know. I'm not a mom, so I can't tell. I'm sure it's not easy, but definitely sucks to be a single dad. So
it's rough, and nobody wants to talk about that. And it is devastating because you're not geared to track the nurturing and the feminine qualities quite the same way, to multitask, to be that distracted. So not only do you have to try to run everything during the day like a single mom would, you have to compartmentalize even more and expand beyond those hours so that you just don't sleep.
I do not sleep. That is 100% correct. Celsius is my friend. My only friend.
Unofficial sponsor of the show is Celsius.
That's right, unofficial. Sponsor is Celsius, please.
That's one of the biggest things we need to really restore, is building functional families where fathers can be fathers and moms can be moms.
Yeah, and I do want to highlight that, like, honestly, for a lot of women in the audience, before you leave and before you choose to quit, just consider that. Like, what is going to happen to your kids and what type of impact is this going to have on them? It is, of course, your own individual decision. And of course, your life is your life and there's many different circumstances. But those actions have tremendous impact, right? So taking away the ability for a father to be immersed in the father role will have very serious consequences, even if they try their best, right? And this is something that, unfortunately, a lot of fathers who are experiencing this, they need to realize that sometimes half of this is not up to them. That's what this is. Half of this is not up to them, and you will just have to do the best you possibly could under the circumstance, right? And if you can fill that motherhood role later by somebody else, if you can, meet somebody, if you can remarry, if you can find another partner, then that's great. But in the meantime, you're not going to be perfect. You're not going to be able to fulfill a lot of these things. You're not going to be able to have the resources to fulfill these things. Now, what is that going to have as an impact on their kids?
Well, and perfection isn't even the goal.
Right.
There will be an impact on your children. You will never be perfect. You're never going to be the parent you want to be. And the parents who are bothered by that are actually the best parents. The parents who are that hurt, who are listening to this and that sucks. Yes, you are a good parent because of that. Again, the goal, and we talked about this at the very beginning, the goal is not for you to be perfect for your kids. The goal is for you to give them the luxury of courage so they can expand beyond you, so they can walk over you, to become a bridge for your kids that they can walk over into the future and then be better parents for their kids. That is the goal here. Be a better parent for your children so they can get to a better future as far as you can. If that means you can only give them a little bit, then you give them every drop you can.
And this is where it's also interesting how those bonds form, right? Because if we take a step back, you're teaching them how to form vasopressin bonds. Those vasopressin bonds are formed through overcoming challenges together. Right now, whether or not you are a father with significant wealth and you teach them by going on fancy yacht trips and I don't know, what do rich dads do? I don't know, extra difficult golf courses, I don't know, like just something like that. Or you're teaching them something small, or something that's lower key. How to play basketball on a public court, just at the bottom of your subsidized house building. How to maybe cook macaroni and cheese if this is the only thing that you can afford. The purpose is not in the amount of money that the experience costs. The purpose is the amount of time and effort that you show them. Right, and that is the way the vasopressin bonding works. That's the easy thing to forget, right? It's not an equal playing field, nor does it have to be.
And it's so important. That is that factor right there, teaching your children. Most fathers, a lot of fathers come to me, first-time fathers, and they say, "Adam, I feel horrible. I feel guilty." Because,
as you should.
But they come to me and they say, my wife is bonding to our children, and she seems like she's so close to them, and I love them. But I don't feel close to my newborn. And I say, that's because you're not meant to bond with them the way that the mom is. You're meant to bond with them through teaching and through overcoming challenges.
That's what I mean. As you should be ashamed of that because you have a desire you're not fulfilling, right? So you should be ashamed of the fact that you're not accomplishing that desire, but you have to understand what the desire is and when the time is right and what you're supposed to go and do about it. So if you cannot bond to your newborn, what are you doing? Because if you cannot respect yourself, shame is a consequence of a lack of respect. If you looked yourself in the mirror, you did not pass the mirror test this morning, and you said, I do not respect myself, I am ashamed because I'm not doing X, I'm not bonding to my newborn. Well, are you actually spending the time? Are you having the skin-to-skin contact? Are you spending the time with your wife? Are you present in those moments? Are you fair to yourself? Are you fair to your abilities? Do you understand your role? Have you done that work before you can actually go in and make that judgment? And if you have failed to do so, that is why you're ashamed.
Well, and perhaps to the men who are stressed out, what I'm talking about specifically is we bond through teaching. So eventually your child needs to reach a point where you can actually teach them things. It's very hard for me to teach. I have a daughter who's 2 months old. It's very hard for me to teach her things right now. I love her, and I hold her, but I am counting the days until I can teach her to hold a spoon. Until I can teach her to hammer things.
Okay, fair point. I understand that part. In that case, yes, you should not be ashamed for not being able to be a mom. I 100% agree. God has not made you to be a woman. Do not act like one. So basically what I mean there more is that understanding should give you so much peace that you will not feel shame. You say, this is just not yet my time, and I look forward to that. If you are feeling shame, I actually am suggesting that there is something to dig into. Either you don't understand the role of fatherhood, and you should actually learn. It doesn't come innate. Like, this is something you have to understand. That is the leading yourself, making yourself evolve into something that is better than what you are so you can lead your family. Like, that is actually the process, right? And shame is 100% a key driver of that process. I am not good enough. A lot of value is in that feeling. You cannot ignore it. You can't live with it. You got to do something about it. And you have to be productive about it because a lot is at stake. How do you deal with that type of shame?
You do something about it.
You do something about it.
And if you don't know what to do, you find somebody who does.
Right.
You find another man who has solved that problem. It could be your father, it could be your grandfather, it could be a coach on the internet, right? It could be any of the parenting brands that are out there. It could be Sophia, like you talked about earlier, men living with that pornography. Sophia is a great option for fixing porn addiction.
Right.
It could be fixing your attachment issues with me, right? Find a man who has solved the problem and then gather that knowledge from him and then become a better father because you are a better man. That is the step.
And that's a key part, right? So overcoming fear. Overcoming fear is a key attribute of fatherhood and masculinity. Overcoming fear of yourself, creating an environment where your children do not fear you, right? Creating an environment where you yourself overcome fear, right? Just fear in general, fear of uncertainty, fear of failure, fear of illness, fear of violence, right? Especially for people who are living in a lower, income brackets. That's a major part. So I remember when I was growing up, martial arts was a big part of life for me because I grew up in a big city and my neighborhood wasn't particularly safe, and that was a key thing that I really had to overcome, right? It's something that you have to step into. You have to understand where your fears lie, right? So that you yourself can, by your own example, demonstrate to your children how to overcome fear and live a fear-free life. You'll fail at that 100% of the cases because there's no such thing as a fear-free life. What we do is we give the concept of it, an ideal, a thing to strive for, a measure of good, right? To a child, we give a measure of good. Did you have a fear-free day today, kid? And if they say yes, you have succeeded as a father today. And you have to repeat that again tomorrow.
The answer is not to have no fear. It's to have no fear that goes unchallenged.
Okay. I like that enhancement. A fear-free life, I guess, do you end your day with fear, right? Is this something you've resolved throughout the day? I was afraid of this or of X, and I have conquered that fear, and I go to bed fear-free. So let's adjust that slightly to include that as a clarification.
There we go. And that itself is that masculinity right there, leading into fatherhood.
And I like that. This was for sure a fantastic conversation about fatherhood.
I hope that the audience got what they needed, because I know there's a lot of fathers out there trying to learn to be better fathers who didn't have role models themselves. And hopefully this conversation moved the needle a little bit so they can understand what's going on.
Yep, I agree with that. For people looking to get a little bit of help on the fatherhood end, talk to Adam. He's got a wonderful coaching platform. What do you do for your coaching for fathers specifically?
Oh man, I have so many fathers come in after their
I was one of them, by the way.
Many fathers come in after a difficult divorce and they don't know how to build a loving family system. They don't know how to co-parent and they want to learn. And I have programs for that. You can find me on adamlanesmith.com. I can show you exactly how to build these loving, consistent, stable, trusting relationships with your children by stepping into the man that you want to be and becoming that man every single day.
Mm-hmm. And having gone through the program yourself for years, I am a much better father than I started. So thank you, Adam. I do strongly encourage people to pay attention. If you do not have the capacity to pay for coaching, for therapy, start with the things you can do. Start by going to the gym. Start by going to a church. Start by building through your network. There's a lot of, go on YouTube, go on, our channels, Adam's channels, many other channels will teach you for free about masculinity, and ingest that information, internalize it, process it, and do something with it. Because exactly, fear is something that is overcome by doing something about it. Eventually you will come to that answer, but it will only happen through work, and that is going to be the work that will teach you how to respect yourself, and that will allow your children to respect you and create that fear-free life for them, or as close to it as you can possibly get. Also, if you need help in terms of understanding how to deal with these many challenges, DM me on Instagram at Andrey Korikov, and I also do some private coaching, small amount. This episode is also sponsored by the Veritas Creator Academy, where we teach you how to be content creators like Adam, getting to 7 figures, eventually 8 figures a year, how to balance all of that with your life and with your family, and also to spread the message that you're passionate about. And then we also have another amazing sponsor. Adam, who's that?
Rugged Legacy has sponsored us today. Thank you, Rugged Legacy Grooming Supplies. They make men look fantastic, and part of being a good father sometimes is not having a horrible spiky beard. My daughter's always telling me it's a hedgehog beard until I put Rugged Legacy, and then they say, oh, it feels so soft. So if you want to have a good fatherly beard, Rugged Legacy Grooming Supplies will help you get there.
Amazing. Well, thank you guys for listening. This was a great conversation. I look forward to having you guys back, and men especially, please comment below. Save, like, share, right? Really subscribe so we can keep building this content, and tell us what you'd like us to talk about next. Maybe you have some guest suggestions that you can recommend, and we'll dive into that. And until then, I'll see you on the next one. Thanks for listening to I Wish You Knew.